There's a quiet truth in life that few truly understand. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. It is not your wishes that shape your future. It is not your desires, your hopes, or your intentions. It is the man you become. And the habits, standards, and disciplines you carry with you that determine what life brings to your doorstep. This explains why so many men want success, yet never experience it. They speak of dreams, of goals, of outcomes they long for, but their lives remain unchanged. Not because those dreams are out of reach, but because the man holding them has not yet become the kind of person who attracts them. Wanting alone is not enough. Every man wants something, but wanting is passive. It costs nothing. It demands nothing. What shapes your results, what molds your reality, is who you are when no one is watching. It is what you tolerate from yourself. It is how you spend your mornings, your evenings, your idle hours. It is not what you hope for, but what you embody. You see, the world responds not to your desires, but to your identity. If you want to attract wealth, you must become the kind of man who manages it, multiplies it, and earns it with consistency. If you want respect, you must live in a way that is worthy of it. If you want love, you must carry the strength and character to offer it first. The law is simple. You get in life not what you demand, but what you mirror. This is why some men rise, seemingly effortlessly. It is not magic. It is not chance. They simply spent enough time building themselves into something solid, and eventually the world began to respond in kind. And this also explains why others, despite wanting more, never gain traction. Because their thoughts and words far exceed the habits that shape their identity. You must begin by asking not what do I want, but who must I become to attract what I want? That question holds power. It shifts your attention from fantasy to formation, from waiting to working, from wishing to working. This becoming is not easy. It requires discomfort. Growth always does. It will demand that you let go of old habits, weak excuses, and fragile self-concepts that no longer serve you. It will require that you tell yourself the truth about how you've lived, what you've avoided, and where you've underperformed. But it will also offer you something extraordinary: alignment. The alignment between who you say you are and how you live every day. And when that alignment is in place, something shifts. You no longer chase success. Success begins to gravitate toward you, not because of what you hope for, but because of what you are. You no longer chase opportunities. You prepare so deeply that opportunities recognize you when they arrive. And the best part? You no longer feel like an imposter, because you know within that you are not pretending. You are not performing. You are living in full congruence with the man you decided to become. So begin today with the most honest question a man can ask himself. Am I the kind of person who attracts what I say I want? If the answer is no, do not despair. Decide. Decide to close that gap. Not through talk, not through waiting, but through transformation. Because once you become what you're after will begin to find you. The man who begins to understand this principle stops asking, how do I get more, and starts asking, how do I grow more? Because he realizes the world does not respond to want. It responds to wait. And wait is not found in your words, it is found in your character. You attract what you are because the world is not fooled by appearance. It reads your consistency. It sees how you spend your hours. It notices how you speak when no one important is listening. It recognizes your discipline, or your excuses. It rewards the man who has built a foundation, not just painted a picture. And that is why transformation must come from the inside out. You cannot cheat the law of identity. You cannot pretend to be successful while living in disorder. You cannot speak of leadership while refusing to lead yourself. You cannot ask for more while doing less. Life may tolerate the illusion for a short while, but eventually, your reality will reveal your reflection. So how do you begin becoming more? You start with standards. You elevate what you demand from yourself. No longer is good enough acceptable. No longer is later a valid reason. No longer is I'll try a meaningful phrase. You commit not to perfection, but to progress. To showing up when others rest. To doing the work when you don't feel like it. To becoming a man who finishes what he begins. This is not about impressing others. It is about becoming someone you respect. Because when you respect yourself, everything changes. Your tone changes, your presence sharpens, your thoughts become aligned, and people notice not because you tell them, but because you show them. The man who builds himself becomes magnetic. He draws quality people, quality opportunities, and quality outcomes, not because he begged for them, but because he became a man who naturally aligns with them. This is not law of attraction as fantasy. This is law of identity as reality. You must look at your life and ask, what have I become? Not based on your dreams, based on your actions, based on your patterns, based on your daily choices. Your current life is not a mystery, it is a mirror. It reflects what you've been, consistently giving to it. If you don't like what you see, don't curse the mirror, change. And know this, becoming is not loud, it is not dramatic. It is often lonely, quiet, and difficult. It requires sacrifice. You will outgrow conversations, habits, even people. You will step away from comfort, from approval, from what used to make you feel safe. But the trade is worth it, because you're trading fantasy for fulfillment. The man who thinks, I want to be a leader but won't take ownership of his own life, he attracts chaos. The man who says, I want wealth but avoids discipline, he attracts scarcity. The man who says, I want peace but feeds drama, he attracts anxiety. But the man who becomes what he desires, he attracts without force. He draws what matches his effort. Because life rewards alignment, not intention, not potential. Alignment. So ask again, what am I becoming? If the answer inspires you, continue. If the answer convicts you, change. Because you don't get what you want. You get what you are. The beauty of this truth, that you attract what you are, is that it places all the power in your hands. You no longer need to wait for a break, a rescue, or a perfect opportunity. You become the opportunity. You become the break someone else is waiting for. Because as you rise in value, life rises. This is the principle that separates the successful from the stagnant. The average man waits for life to get better so he can feel better. The uncommon man gets better first, and life adjusts accordingly. His thoughts sharpen, his energy elevates, and his behavior becomes precise. He is no longer guessing who he is, he knows. Confidence is not built through affirmation, it is built through evidence, the kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself. When you say, I train daily, and you train daily, your mind begins to trust you. When you say, I rise early, and you do it, your spirit responds with certainty. Confidence, then, is not a gift. It is the reward for integrity, and integrity is the foundation of identity. The man who does not live in alignment attracts chaos. Life tests him, not to punish him, but to reflect his contradictions. His relationships are inconsistent. His income is unstable. His results are unreliable. Not because he lacks potential, but because his character has not caught up to his desires. So what must you do? Refuse to live in contradiction. If you say you are committed, let your habits prove it. If you say you want peace, stop fueling noise. If you say you want excellence, then remove anything in your life that pulls you toward mediocrity, because your words will not save you, your patterns will, and your patterns are the clearest evidence of who you are becoming. The world is not confused, it will give you exactly what you've trained it to give. If you lower your standards, you will attract people who validate that weakness. If you elevate your discipline, you will find yourself surrounded by those who challenge you to keep growing. Your environment is not just around you. This is why transformation must begin in the mind. To change your results, you must change your identity. Not just how you see yourself, but how you act, how you carry yourself, how you respond under pressure, how you move when no one is watching. Because life is not responding to your dreams, it is responding to your discipline. And when that discipline becomes automatic, when you no longer need motivation to do what must be done, then you've become the man who attracts more by being more. Understand this clearly. You do not need to chase, you need to align. Chasing implies lack. Alignment implies wholeness. When your thoughts, your speech, your actions, and your standards are all pointing in the same direction, toward growth, strength, responsibility, the world begins to organize itself around you. This is not philosophy, this is observable. It is why leaders are followed, why builders are funded, why creators are admired, not because they ask for attention, but because their attention was so focused that the world noticed. You attract what you are, not what you pretend to be. So, rise into integrity, and then watch what life begins to send your way. There's a moment in every man's journey where he realizes the answer isn't out there, it's in here. He stops searching for external validation, shortcuts, or secrets. He turns inward and asks, "Who am I becoming?" Because once he understands that life mirrors identity, not desire, he begins to change the only thing that truly matters: himself. That is where transformation begins, not in setting louder goals, but in adopting deeper character, not in craving applause, but in living with alignment. And as this alignment deepens, something remarkable happens. The need to chase disappears. There is no longer desperation, only direction. There is no longer panic, only purpose. The man who understands this lives differently. He speaks less, not because he lacks opinion, but because he understands that his example is louder than his words. He moves deliberately, not because he's slow, but because he wastes no motion. He chooses his environment carefully, not because he fears influence, but because he respects his energy. Everything about him shifts, quietly, powerfully. And then the world responds. New people appear, those who share his mindset, his mission, his momentum. New opportunities arise, not because he begged for them, but because he's prepared. New results begin to accumulate, not through chance, but through alignment. He has become valuable, and value always attracts return. This is why it's never about trying harder to get what you want. It's about becoming more aligned with the kind of man who naturally draws it in. A man of clarity, discipline, consistency, and deep self-respect. You must begin living like the future version of yourself now. Do not wait until you are rich to be responsible. Be responsible and you will be trusted with wealth. Do not wait until you are respected to carry yourself with honor. Walk in honor and respect will follow. Do not wait until you are successful to take yourself seriously. Take yourself seriously now, and success will treat you accordingly. Too many men wait for permission to become who they already know they must be. They think they need results before they can stand tall. But you must stand tall before the results arrive. You must move as if the future you is already watching you, because he is. This is the mindset of men who change their lives. They don't perform, they align. They don't ask, "How do I make this happen?" They ask, "How do I become the man who makes this inevitable?" And that man is built in the small decisions, the early wake-ups, the final reps, the disciplined silence, the sharp attention to detail, the personal integrity, the refusal to break promises to oneself. Not once, not ever. This is how character compounds, and that character becomes magnetic. It's the man who doesn't need to brag because his life speaks. The man who doesn't need to beg because his standards do the sorting. The man who doesn't rush because he knows what's his is already making its way toward him. Not because he wants it, but because he has become the man who deserves it. There comes a time when you no longer measure progress by what you've gained, but by who you've become. You stop asking, "What can I get?" and begin asking, "What kind of man am I choosing to be every single day?" That shift is subtle, but it is the turning point. Because when you become the kind of man whose actions reflect discipline, whose habits reflect maturity, life almost quietly begins to cooperate. That's because identity, not ambition, sets the ceiling on your success. It's why some men remain stuck. Despite wanting more, their identity hasn't changed. They're still thinking like the old version of themselves, still reacting like the old version, still making decisions out of fear, out of comfort, out of habit, even though they speak of goals that belong to a more evolved self. But results do not respond to the man you speak like. They respond to the man you behave like. So if you want to attract better, become better. And not better for show, not better for praise, better in truth. Better in silence. Better when no one is keeping score but you. Because the world doesn't give you what you pretend to be. It gives you what you repeatedly are. And this is why so few ever break through. Not because they're unwilling to dream, but because they're unwilling to shed who they were to become who they must be. They want new outcomes but cling to old habits. They want new respect but carry old standards. They want extraordinary lives while protecting ordinary routines, and so they remain in a gap, aware of what's possible, but too familiar with what's comfortable to cross into it. You must not make that mistake. You must confront the old version of yourself with honesty, with courage, with the understanding that growth requires sacrifice not of your potential, but of your comfort. You must be willing to disappoint the lazy version of you, the distracted version, the reactive version, because that version is the one blocking the results you seek. Everything you say you want already exists, but it exists on the other side of transformation. And transformation is earned through consistency, the daily disciplines, the sharp choices, the elevation of your speech, your routine, your environment, your focus. Do not underestimate the power of these daily acts. You think they are small, but the man who cannot be trusted with the small cannot be trusted with the big. If you want more, you must handle less with excellence. If you want to rise, you must build your foundation with precision. Your identity must match your desires, because life is not fooled. You can speak abundance, but if you carry scarcity in your posture and your generosity in your mindset, abundance will retreat. You can say you want greatness, but if you sleep in, skip steps, hide from discomfort, greatness will remain an idea, not a reality. But the moment you live in full congruence, thought, word, action, standard, you become a man who no longer begs for success. You become the kind of man who attracts it, not because of what you want, but because of what you are. At last we arrive at the final truth, and it is this: you are not waiting for life to change. Life is waiting for you to change. Because you do not attract what you want. You never did. You attract what you are. Who you are determines what you notice. What you notice shapes how you think dictates how you move, and how you move creates your results. You cannot escape this law. You cannot cheat it. You cannot bypass it with a secret, a shortcut, or a clever phrase. The only way to change your results is to change you. So the question is not, when will things get better? The question is, when will I become better? Because when you become better, more focused, more disciplined, more responsible, life adjusts. Not immediately, but inevitably. Like gravity, this law is constant. You rise, and what you attract rises with you. This means you don't need more luck. You don't need more praise. You don't need to chase. You need only to build. Build your habits. Build your body. Build your clarity. Build your attention. Build your life from the inside out. And when you do, you stop asking for things to come to you, because they already are. People will wonder what changed. They'll say, "You're lucky, things just work out for you." But you'll know it wasn't luck, it was identity. It was who you became when no one was watching. It was the way you thought when no one else believed. It was the hours you invested that no one clapped for. It was the quiet refusal to live below your potential. That is what changed your life. And now, you no longer feel like a visitor to success. You no longer feel like an imposter in your own future. You belong here because you built the character required to hold it. This is the reward of internal transformation. Not just better outcomes, but the end of internal conflict. No more double life, no more pretending, no more hoping success shows up before you're ready to carry it. You are ready, because you became ready. And this process never ends. You will keep evolving, keep refining, keep becoming, because what you attract tomorrow will depend on who you are becoming today. So the work never stops, and that's a good thing. Because once you realize you don't have to beg, impress, or chase, once you understand that all of life is responding to your level of identity, you stop wishing. You start becoming, and you let the results catch up.